So now that we know a little bit about the foreclosure process, we're going to need to figure out who are we marketing to. How do we contact these people? Where do we get lists? How do we build lists? What do we need to do to get in touch with these people? So one of the first opportunities you're going to have whenever you're looking at pre-foreclosures is you're going to be able to find the people that are behind on payments, 30 days late, 60 days late, 90 days late, whatever that might end up being. But you can get lists of people that are behind on payments. Now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go through this slide, and then I'm going to reiterate some very important things that I need to make sure you're aware of before I walk away from this though. This specific type of list is built, generated, and sold through the credit bureaus. They are not easy lists to get a hold of. They are somewhat a coveted asset. People don't typically tell where they get these lists from, but there are some very important things to know about with these lists. That is that these lists are heavily regulated by the CFPB, the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, and the FCRA, which is the Fair Credit Reporting Act. Those handle how these lists are sold, used, and everything else. These are not the types of lists you're just going to go out and start marketing to without a strong understanding of what these laws are. Advertising to these types of lists must make firm offers of credit or insurance. And I really recommend that you consult with the proper legal counsel prior to any advertising with these lists. Now that means you're going to need to find an attorney that is truly aware of the Fair Credit Reporting Act and the Consumer Financing Protection Bureau. And so that way, when you put it all together, you're not violating the law. It's pretty important. Now, I'm going to go ahead and send some links below directly to the documents that I'm referring to that talk about these types of lists and how they are affected by the government and by the law. But these are great lists to market to. I'm going to give you some brief backgrounds on my experience with working with them. You can get them 30 days late, 60, 90, 120, 150, 180. It doesn't matter. You can order them however far in default you want them. But what I found was very often whenever I was marketing to the people that were like 30 days behind on their mortgage, they were very much of the opinion that it was a temporary problem, that they were going to be able to resolve it. They just got behind a month, but they've got a job again and they're ready to go. More often than not, like I said, the 30-day lates were very much of the opinion that they still had this situation under control. 60-day lates, still kind of a similar situation. They're feeling like, well, I can do this, I can do that. 90 days, 120 days, 150 days. Where I started seeing the pinch really start picking up and my call rates coming back was around the 120-day mark. So that's just my own personal marketing experience. I'm not going to try and sway your decision to mail to any specific day or not, because I have found that things that work for me don't work for others, and things that work for others don't work for me. But just as a tidbit of my own personal experience, around 120 days late is where I started seeing the motivation pick up. So when these people get behind on payments, as we've already discussed, what does the lender have the option to do? The lender has the option to foreclose. And if the lender is going to foreclose, they must start by accelerating the note. Accelerating the note is essentially, they use a clause inside of the security instrument that says, in the event that any past due payment comes owed and unpaid, then not only can we ask for that payment, but we can ask for that payment and the entire principal amount. That's called the acceleration of the note, because prior to having that acceleration clause in the security instrument, a bank could only foreclose on what was not paid to them. So by giving the acceleration clause, they can now accelerate all payments due in full at the time of default, what is going to be called your acceleration clause. Okay? So when the bank accelerates the note, we have two different processes. We've already discussed them, those being due process, judicial. Judicials are mortgage security instruments, and due process is deed of trust security instruments. So we have two different processes, but both of them result with the exact same outcome. All right, now with the deed of trust, the due process, the way this goes is if you're in a deed of trust state, research and find in public record a document that is almost always going to be related and filed when a deed of trust is the security instrument. And that's going to be called a substitute trustee. All right, I'm going to slow down on this and we're going to talk about this a little bit, okay? What's a substitute trustee? What is that? Because many people do not understand this, okay? So deed of trust is a trust document. A trust has a trustee. The trustee is the person responsible for managing this deed of trust. Whenever the person first borrows money to buy their house, the bank is going to have them sign off on the security instrument, which in this case is going to be the deed of trust, and there will be a trustee named on that document at the date of purchase. Well, let's say this property is going to foreclosure today, and the deed of trust was signed 12 years ago. It's highly unlikely that that trustee is still going to be around, or the one that the bank would choose to foreclose on this property for them. More often than not, the trustee that is on that original document is the lawyer that the bank paid to draft that document. They will often hire a new attorney and have them act as the trustee on that deed of trust. That trustee's responsibility is to enforce the deed of trust in the event of a default. Okay? The trustee is the one responsible for the foreclosure. So if the bank hires a new attorney, they need to remove the other attorney from the deed of trust and replace that trustee with a new one. That is going to be filed, and it's called an appointment of substitute trustee. It is also sometimes known as substitute trustee, appointment of substitute trustee, removal of substitute trustee, removal of trustee. There's all different ways of naming that document. The two that I'm most familiar with are the appointments of substitute trustees and the removal of trustees. If you find one of those two, it's probably the document you're looking for. Okay? That is the appointment of substitute trustee list. I've got another video that shows you how to find these in public record, how to search for them, the stuff to find within those documents. But if you review that video, it'll show you how to find out the owner's name, the date that they borrowed the money, and other key factors that might help you decide on whether or not that is the type of lead that you want. But that is what the appointment of substitute trustee is. Now, I need to also make this clear before we move on. My experience has been that almost all appointments of substitute trustees filed are because of a foreclosure. That is not always the case. I cannot sit here and say that just because you see that appointment of substitute trustee filed or you see a new trustee come of record, that does not directly mean that the property is in foreclosure. My experience says that most of all of them are, like a very high percentage of them. Your mileage may vary though. You may get a different experience out of this, but there are other reasons to file this, such as the homeowners have refinanced the property and the new bank would like their lawyer act as the trustee. Then they'll create an appointment of substitute trustee. It does not guarantee that they're in foreclosure. My experience, quite often they are. Now let me throw another curveball at you here. This is going to vary state by state, so what I'm speaking on is Texas-based. You might find different in your state. You might find it to be the same. I can't say yes or no. With this list though, and something that I really like about this list, and I want you to follow this path with me. I'm going to slow it down a little bit. I'm going to try and make sure that I clearly convey this point. If I'm the lender and I'm about to start the foreclosure process, I hire an attorney, and that attorney is the attorney that I'm going to choose to foreclose on this property for me. One of the very first things that attorney is going to do is file for an appointment of substitute trustee, putting him in position to take over that right in that role. Think about that for a second. If I have got a bank about to move forward with an auction and they hire that person, and the very first thing that they do is file that document in public record, that is quite often, more often than not, a specific list type that is not targeted often by other investors. It's not a very well-known document. It's a document that gained me a lot of traction in the foreclosure market, but that document right there is quite often a very strong precursor to a public filing of foreclosure, and you can jump the gun by getting to that list and marketing to that list as fast as you possibly can. And by doing that, you will beat a lot of the foreclosure investors that are marketing to the notice of trustee sales, which is one we're about to talk about. This right here is often filed months, weeks, days before public filings. So it gives you a really strong head start on marketing to these people. Other things to think about with this particular document is, let's see here. Anything else I can think of right there? Yes, this document, at least in the state of Texas, is not a document that is regulated by the state of Texas, meaning there is no specific timelines for performance. There is no specific due process required with this. This is just kind of an auxiliary effect of the due process itself. So there's no regulation behind this. So I can't tell you when it's going to be foreclosed on. I can't tell you if it's going to be today. I can't tell you if it's going to be tomorrow. I can't tell you anything other than I know that this was filed. That property may be going to auction in 2 days. It may be going to auction in 2 weeks. It may never go to auction. It may go to auction in 6 months. There's no way for me to know when this document was filed or what this document was filed for. All I can lean on is my personal experience, which said most of the time when this document was filed, the person was in foreclosure, and very often that person was in, this document was filed before that person was even aware that they were in foreclosure, which meant I was getting a really big head start on other investors. Let me pause on that and go a little bit further into this document once again, and that is multiples of these can be filed. This bank might hire an attorney A, and this attorney has a bunch of other people that work with him, other attorneys. Then he might file another one, and then he realizes he needs somebody else on his team on this project. He hires another one or throws another attorney on there. So you might see 5 or 6 of these recorded on a single property. That does not mean that there was a mistake or anything else like that. It's just kind of part of the nature of this game. As you get to going through these properties and you're kind of concerned, am I dealing with a foreclosure or am I dealing with, a refinance? I don't want to be sending foreclosure marketing to refinance people. Things that you might be able to do is look at the foreclosing attorneys. Not always, but more often than not, especially in major metropolitan areas, as theirs becomes what we're going to call foreclosure houses. Attorneys and firms of teams that do nothing but foreclosures. And if you went to let's just say a typical attorney, they might charge you $3,000 to $5,000 to foreclose on a property. But these foreclosure houses that do nothing but specialize in foreclosing on properties, they might charge you $1,500, $1,600. And this is for non-judicial. I don't know what it's like for you in judicial states. But yeah, they might charge $1,500, $1,600, so they get all of the bank's business. If I get used to that and I start looking through these appointments of substitute trustees, and like here in Dallas, we have Barrett, Dapper, Frappier, Turner, Engel, and I think they just added another one to that partnership. But literally, if I see that trustee come through, I can almost guarantee you it's a foreclosure because I know that trustee is one that farms a lot of foreclosures. So other little tidbits about this document that may help you. All right, so moving on from there, we've talked about the 30-day, 60-day, 90-day late list. We've talked about due process in deeds of trust states. We have substitute trustees. Well, guess what? We also have notice of trustee sales. Now, if you are in judicial foreclosure states and you don't want to learn about this, you might want to skip forward. We're going to talk about lis pendens and the judicial process next. Another document of severe importance to you is going to be your notice of trustee sale, sometimes called notice of default, but what it is a state-regulated document that is going to put creditors as well as the general public on notice that this property is going into default. So the importance of this is we know for a fact if this is filed, then we've got a potential foreclosure on hand. Unlike the appointment substitute trustee, that document is not regulated, so there's no definitive reason for why it's filed, just my personal experience pulling from that. In this case, it's a guaranteed bank is going to move forward with foreclosure if this problem's not resolved. So this is a clear red flag to anybody out there that you need to be paying attention to this, marketing to this, trying to get in front of these people as an opportunity to purchase this property and assist them with stopping the foreclosure of that real estate. That is for your deeds of trusts. So on deeds of trust or deeds of trust security instruments, deeds of trust states, those really are the only 2 documents that I know of in public record that could point you in the right direction for marketing and for potential leads to buy their houses from. deeds of trusts, appointments of substitute trustee. If you know of any other ones, if you come across some different names or some different nomenclature or different filings in your state and you'd like to share that with us as a group, please go ahead and comment below. Let us know that what you're finding as you're going through these different states and figuring these types of things out. But overall, those are the only two that I really know of in deeds of trust states. So that moves us forward, and we're going to be looking now at the mortgages, the lawsuits, the judicial foreclosure process. So I've already been open about this. I'm not a really big judicial foreclosure expert. All of my experience does come from deeds of trust states, but what I'm about to show you is going to be reiterations of my personal experience on two of them, combined with the research I took to figure out what to do with those two properties. So we're going to go ahead and look real quick at lis pendens. So lis pendens is going to be the document we're going to find in public record for judicial foreclosures. Lis pendens is Latin for pending lawsuit. That's essentially what that means. So when these are filed in county record, I now know that there's a lawsuit coming up against this house. More often than not, we are looking at judicial foreclosure processes when we see the lis pendens filed. So right there is a great opportunity for you to find out potentially distressed sellers. That's where we're going to start marketing to if we're in judicial foreclosure markets. So where am I going to get these lists? We've got another video here in the Propelio Academy in this series where we're going to discuss and show you step by step how to pull these from public record, the information that should be pertinent for you to make sure that you've got a deal going. And we're going to teach you all of that. So check out that video if you would like to learn how to pull those lists. But if you are in the areas that Propelio serves, Propelio does provide pre-foreclosure lists. Propelio does provide probate lists, other lists, and many other features like comps, off-market lead lists. We provide websites for real estate investors. So if you're out there using a Gmail email address or something like that, make sure to check out our websites feature so you can get access to a good email from there. But you can get these lists from other commercially available places. I don't recommend doing it just going like online, searching for probate lists or pre-foreclosure lists, because you really need to qualify your list provider to what time frame they release them in. Like if a document is filed on Monday, is it released on Monday, Tuesday, next week, 30 days late? The quality of your lists really is going to fluctuate, or not fluctuate, going to sway how good you're doing with this particular strategy, because foreclosures are a very, very time-sensitive piece, especially in deed of trust states. If you get an old list, you're going to have issues with marketing. So make sure whoever you're getting your list from, that you find out the frequency that they are being supplied. If they're not being supplied within 24 hours of being put on the public website, then you're kind of in trouble. You're kind of putting yourself up for a bad move there. So how am I going to get in contact with the owner of these houses? This is the fun piece. There are many different ways to market. We do have a marketing section here on the Academy that we can discuss many of those at, but I'm going to nail in on some of the bigger ones that I personally liked using in pre-foreclosures. Before we do this though, we're going to need to figure out what kind of budget we have. Are you pretty much running on bare bones, no extra income available to you? Or do you have $500 a month, $10,000 a month, $5,000 a month to put towards your marketing? Those kinds of questions are going to determine what you need to move forward with on marketing. If you've got either one, you're not really in a better or worse position. If you have no money though, your success will be determined by your marketing. You need to get very, very comfortable with doing a lot of things you probably wouldn't be used to doing. If you have no money, a very successful way to get these properties is door knocking. That might seem extremely uncomfortable for you, but watch our section here on the Propelio Academy just on door knocking. But if you have zero marketing budget and you're wanting to get this done, you're going to need to learn how to start making cold calls and door knock. If there's a foreclosure filing posted in the morning, before the end of the day, you need to be the first one at the door, because you're going to be competing with other people. Speed means a lot. Get there first. Knock on the door, do what you have to do. Make sure you're staying safe. Don't go out there and do some stupid stuff. Check out the videos there on the door knocking side. But your success is going to be greatly determined by your marketing. This is marketing first, investing second. I can teach you everything there is to know about investing, but if you don't get the marketing piece, you're going to really struggle with succeeding in this business, because you got network marketing, you got all kinds of marketing. Check it out in the Propelio Academy in that specific section. But you're going to be a marketer first and an investor second. And if you have zero money up front, you're going to have to do things that most people aren't comfortable doing. That is the cold calling door knocking type of stuff. And you need to develop a plan and stay consistent with it. You might, try this for 30 days and say, you know what, I spent an extra 5 hours a week for the last month and I got nowhere. Well, if all you have is 5 hours, well then just keep applying 5 hours a week to this. This is not a get rich quick easy thing. This is pretty complicated. The process itself is simple, but getting out there and staying consistent with it is something you're going to need to make sure to do. So other things we can look at right here. So budget your time and money around. These are the main things that I saw success in as a marketer. Door knocking is very, very, very important to you as a foreclosure investor. Cold calling is also, if you've never heard of RVMs or those types of things, check out the RVMs in the marketing section. Cold calling, Craigslist, referrals. Referral marketing does really work. I mean, get out there and tell everybody in the world, if you know somebody that's in foreclosure, I can help them if they've got the house. It does work. Bandit signs, great lead opportunity. They're not really targeted, but I got a lot of pre-foreclosures through my bandit signs. Direct mail marketing. I honestly think of all of the strategies right now, if you're in a densely populated area, direct mail does work, but it does not have near the efficiency as door knocking and cold calling do, I believe. Door knocking and cold calling, the speed is just better. Like if I have a list come out on Monday morning and I'm sending it direct mail and I get it out that day, I'm still looking at probably at least a 2 to 3 day lead time before my marketing reaches that seller. So if I have an appointment, a substitute trustee filed this morning and I'm door knocking it that day, there's a very high probability that I am going to be the first person that seller's ever talked to. And if they are prepared and ready to sell, being the first one at the door is extremely important. So although direct mail does work, I am a big proponent of door knocking and cold calling. Proponent, I don't even know if that's the right word. You get the point though. Digital marketing. Digital marketing is a great way to get a hold of these leads. My experience on that is not the greatest. I'm just now getting into a point where I'm starting to learn a lot more about that side of the business. But the digital marketing, I have been working with other people that do this, is just absolutely wonderful. It's competitive, it's expensive, but if you can get in there and play in that game, it's a great way to get pre-foreclosure leads. Here's a really good one that's going to get you a lot more money than what you're going to anticipate. If you're a newbie out there and I'm telling you this, or if you're an advanced user out there and I'm telling you this, and you're not listening to what I'm saying, you are missing out on probably one of the most important pieces of this entire video. That is skip, trace, returned mail, or if you're sending out mail, skip trace your return mail. Make sure that you're skip tracing it, because if everybody out there sending direct mail and I'm mailing to this house and it's getting bounced, there's something wrong there. I need to find out who the owner is, find out what the underlying asset is, skip trace and get in touch with them, because those are going to be the leads that don't have anybody contacting them. Not many people skip trace that return mail. So if you're paying attention, make sure that gets done. All right, so some key takeaways from this video that you need to go ahead and move forward with to progress and become better at this is, depending on if you're mortgage or judicial or non-judicial state, find some copies of those documents. Check out that other video for learning how to pull them. But once you have pulled those, kind of get a feel for how they work, and then we need to start putting some thought behind how you want to market to these types of lists. Are you going to be the person that goes out and door knock? Are you not comfortable with door knocking? Do you need to find yourself a work wife or a work husband or a work friend where you go and work together and go door knock together? Maybe you're good with the numbers, maybe they're good with the talking. Figure out a way, a good little system put together. Am I going to be cold calling? Am I going to be sending mail? What am I going to do to attract these sellers? We're going to talk a little bit more about the brainstorming session of this in the next video, but put some thoughts behind which particular marketing strategy do you think that you could apply the most amount of time to and be the most effective with, and stay consistent. Consistent is extremely important with this. Don't just try it for a little bit, give up. Always split test, change up your marketing, and go ahead and push forward with that. So some takeaways from this is, the documents that you might be able to find in public record to help assist with building your lists and or buy lists, and how to qualify where to buy your lists from. And some of the homework that you should be getting complete is to review those list types, see if you can find resources to get those lists. Once again, Propelio does provide these lists in certain segmented markets. And then last and not least, you need to go ahead and put together some thoughts between how much money you could apply to this and how much time you could apply to this. If you've got a lot of money and you've got a lot of time, you've got a lot of options. If you don't have a lot of money, then you better have a lot of time. And if you don't have a lot of time, you better have a lot of money. So different things to think about there, and go ahead and move forward with that. And I'll see you on the next video.